All right, busy week. I'm cooking up a lot of good stuff right now. That's why we're starting this 49ers offense preview against the Lions later at night. Probably won't go as long, but it's time to talk about Brock Purdy, this 49ers offense against the Detroit defense that hasn't been great. They're a lot better than last year. The Lions didn't make the playoffs in 2022, not because of their offense, which was borderline top five, but because their defense was a bottom seven unit at best. They've improved this year. New personnel. Some rookies have come in. Brian Branch, one of the rookies, the nickelback I'm going to talk about. He actually leads this defense in tackles. He's been a missile flying around. But some development has happened as well. The Lions have taken the next step in their progression. It's just tough to see on a dry track because it's not going to be wet this weekend. That's big for the 49ers. It really is tough to see Detroit slowing down San Francisco to the extent they're going to need to win this football game. And that's why the 49ers are 7-point favorites against the Detroit Lions entering this weekend. So anyway, let's get to it. We're going to take a look at Detroit's depth chart. I'm going to point out some weaknesses and some strengths on this team as we analyze this matchup against the 49ers. So there's the depth chart. Mike has just sent us a nice video of Brock Purdy. We're also going to get into that. Purdy was talking about today at the press conference the Ray McCloud play, the miscommunication from the game against the Packers. And I think that that's worth watching as we turn the page here for the Lions. So, first of all, big key for the 49ers, the two top pass rushers for the Detroit Lions are these two guys, Aiden Hutchinson on the outside and Aleem McNeil on the inside. McNeil is, if we want to draw a comparison to what the 49ers faced last week, a Green Bay team that did generate some pressure, they had Kenny Clark on the inside. He was ranked number 10 out of all defensive tackles in pass rushing productivity from PFF. Aleem McNeil is ranked number 24. So solid defensive tackle, solid pass rusher, but he's not a top 10 guy like Kenny Clark last week. Meanwhile, Aiden Hutchinson, he is the number 7 pass rushing productivity edge rusher in football. Last week, Rashawn Gary, the top guy for the Packers, was number 10. So the Lions are a little bit better with their top edge defender, but they're worse, they're grade worse with their top interior rusher. That's worth noting. Aiden Hutchinson lines up against both sides of the formation, but I think that he's going to shade more toward Colton McKivitz this time. The glory of having Trent Williams on your team is you never have to think about assigning chip help to his side. He's going to be fine one-on-one, even if they line Aiden Hutchinson up over there. So the 49ers' help schematically is always going to be directed toward the right side, and that's going to be toward Colton McKivitz's side. It looks like John Feliciano is going to start again at right guard. Boy, did he have a good run block there on Christian McCaffrey's winning touchdown. So you expect to see Feliciano, the veteran, Colton McKivitz, also a veteran, right guard, right tackle. The strength is obviously run blocking for the 49ers, but if they do need to help out Colton McKivitz against Aiden Hutchinson, San Francisco will. I think it's a fairly cut and dry game plan. I don't think that the Lions have an overwhelming pass rush. Again, this defense been mediocre when you look at the efficiency ratings this year. It's been better than bad. We'll put it that way. Last year it was bad. It prevented the Lions from going places. This year the defense has gotten better, so they're closer to being a balanced football team. But one key before I get into the details of the Lions' coverages and their defensive schemes, Purdy today was talking about the need to trust the checkdowns. Because last week, I think, and if you go and listen to him talk in his press conference, he details it. But he said that last week he wasn't quite trusting the natural flow of the system. It might have been a little bit of the rust, who knows? But what happened was that he was looking downfield too long. He was trying to push the ball downfield too much, at least mentally. And then he would get out of rhythm for the checkdowns, especially in weather when that ball's a little bit slippery. You have to calmly go through your reads so that you could deliver some of the easier passes. He was making some of the gimmies difficult. And I think that was part of Brock Purdy's struggles for the first 3.5 quarters in that game. So trust the checkdowns if you're Brock Purdy. That's a goal that he himself said today. And then why don't we listen to Brock talking today about his miscommunication with Ray McCloud. This was later in the game. This was on a third down. Shanahan blamed Ray McCloud. He said, hey, Ray, you can't just break off the route because the quarterback can't see that the defender slipped. You got to run to a spot. So Shanahan blamed this on the receiver. Brock Purdy's comments, his intonation, his willingness to learn from this and grow with Ray McCloud, I think all interesting insights into the quarterback's character.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going through my progressions and from where I'm at with the pocket closing and stuff, I'm expecting him to be where he's supposed to be with the route that we had called on. The corner actually slipped that was guarding him, so he was trying to be smart and, throw up his hand and run the space, which I get. And so in the moment, I was like, man, you just got to be where you got to be, where I'm expecting you to be. But I totally understand what you're doing. If a guy falls, there's a big play to be made out there. So we had talked about it, and then we ended up on good terms, and moving forward, we know what to expect out of each other and stuff. And when we're in that moment again, so it's just communication. We're competitors in the heat of battle. Things like that happen, and we needed that, in that moment in the game. So that third down. So I had a little frustration come out and stuff, but it's nothing but love. I totally trust and respect Ray and what he's done, and we're going to get better from it.
Thought that was a really, really insightful answer from Brock Purdy about what exactly happened on that play. Ray McCloud thought that he could run out toward the pylon because the cornerback had slipped, but a big issue in football is that crazy stuff is happening in the pocket, big men flying around. Sometimes the quarterback can't see over some of the linemen. The pass rush is obviously something that can obstruct the vision of what happens downfield. And so much of the 49ers offense is predicated on timing, throwing to a spot, running to the spot where the throw is going to be. So if in the midst of chaos, Brock Purdy didn't see that the corner fell down because he's scanning other reads, he can't just take off toward the pylon if you're Ray McCloud. It might seem obvious to the receiver, but it wasn't so obvious to the quarterback who was throwing to the original spot. Anyway, that was Purdy's explanation. 49ers are going to be developing rhythm the further they go into this. That's the beauty of having a quarterback that's only 24 years old. He's only going to get better because he's only going to develop better rapport with his receivers, right? And that's a play that didn't work out for the 49ers, didn't cost them, and now they can focus on nailing that play and nailing some of the improvisation if they want to add that into it moving forward, if they could pick up the lessons from that. The Lions have run a ton of zone defense against pass plays this year. Crazy because last year they ran the second most man coverage against pass plays. But they were really bad last year, and they figured, okay, how do we begin fixing this defense? Well, the start of the fix was, why don't we try to stop the run? How do you stop the run schematically? Well, you could switch the zone defense, so you could align on your terms. You could have your guys in the gaps that you want them to be, so that way the holes aren't gaping big against you going the other way. So the Lions have moved to a lot of zone, but their pass defense is the defense's weak spot. If they run a lot of cover 4, the defensive backs are going to be guarding against the verticals. Meanwhile, the linebackers in that zone defense might be inching forward to stop the run, and Detroit's number 1 against the run. That just all adds up into the 49ers needing to take advantage of the second level, the intermediate level, over the linebackers in front of the DBs, the intermediate level that Brock Purdy has thrown to a lot over the course of the past 2 years. He's been the most efficient passer on record, on PFF's record. That's a quarter century of stats on those intermediate throws, 12.8 yards per attempt. The two corners for the Detroit Lions, Kindle Vilder and Cam Sutton, have not been good this year. Vilder's given up 140.5 rating into his coverage. Cam Sutton has given up a 122.0 rating into his coverage. Brian Branch, the nickelback, the rookie's been a whole lot better, an 86.4 passer rating into his coverage. But I really think between the zone defense and the struggling outside cornerbacks, Brandon Ayuk can have a big game here. I don't know what Deebo Samuel's status is. We'll see as that progresses. But I think Ayuk can have a big game. I think Kittle working out of the slot, because I don't think they're going to have Brian Branch covering him. But I think Kittle working out of the slot against some of this zone can have a big game. I think that schematically the 49ers can attack the part of the field that they've attacked so well this year against the Lions team that's given up a lot of passing yardage on a week in, week out basis to many consecutive quarterbacks. So you look at the initial round of the playoffs, Matthew Stafford was throwing for big yardage against the Lions. Last week, Baker Mayfield threw for a lot of yards against the Lions. It's about converting in the red zone, which the 49ers have done really well this year. The Rams didn't do that against Detroit. It's obviously about converting in the red zone, but the yardage is going to be there. And if you can move it between the 20s, you need to be able to move it inside the 20 when the space gets more condensed. This is the NFC Championship game. There's going to have to be a clutch element here. I don't think that the Lions have demonstrated that ability to play at the highest level defensively this year, while the 49ers obviously have demonstrated the ability to play at the highest level offensively. One more look at this Detroit defense. You look at Aiden Hutchinson, you look at Alan McNeil. These are the two guys that are going to be the strength of the pass rush. The linebackers are better in coverage between Alex Anzalone and Derek Barnes than what the 49ers saw last week against the Green Bay Packers. But the corners are definitely worse than what we saw last week against the Green Bay Packers. That's Kendall Vilder and Cam Sutton. You just have to look out for Brian Branch because he is a good nickelback. It's a look at a defense that's ranked what? Number 13, number 14 DVOA. 49ers are the top offense in the league. This is definitely an advantage for the 49ers offense, this matchup right here. Brock Purdy could be in line to have a really big day against all that zone defense. I think the 49ers are licking their chops. I think Brandon Ayuk alluded to there being an opportunity for the 49ers. By the way, today, Brandon Ayuk, if we want to continue talking about some of the discourse, because we've had the truth on the Brock Purdy situation throughout. I know that there's a lot of other commentators that haven't, and it's not looking too good for them. But you look at what Brandon Ayuk said today, quote, "We're all sitting here because of him, obviously." I mean, receivers don't just say that about their quarterback. We're all sitting here because of him, and then add the obviously unless they mean it. There's a lot of other fluffy, nice stuff that you can say if you're Brandon Ayuk that's not quite as pointed as that, but he credited Brock Purdy for taking the 49ers to the NFC Championship game. And then, I talk about it all the time. I say yak is a quarterback stat. Yards after the catch is a QB stat. The QB has to set it up. Well, it's one thing when I say it or when a coach says it, but when a wide receiver himself says the following, I think your ears can really perk up and you could be like, oh, yeah, yak is a QB stat. Here's what Brandon Ayuk said. Purdy gets us the ball on time so we can do what we can after we catch the football. It takes the quarterback to get you the ball on time so you can transition and turn plays into bigger plays. So Brandon Ayuk, a receiver, quite literally saying he's a receiver up for a big payday, quite literally saying that yak is very dependent on the quarterback. And Brock Purdy has facilitated a lot of yak for the 49ers this year. Lions about middle of the pack in terms of the yak that they've allowed per catch. So there should be opportunities for the 49ers in that realm. Bottom line is that their offense is a whole lot better than the Lions defense, and it is the biggest advantage that the 49ers have in this football game. That's just as simple as that. You look at the numbers, you look at the performance, 49ers have the edge in this battle. All right, back to work. I got a lot to do, so we'll talk to you here over the next couple days. We'll see you soon.